Welcome back. According to the United Nations, over 4 million refugees have fled the devastating conflict in Syria. To help address the crisis, Lifeline Syria aims to recruit, train, and assist sponsor groups to welcome 1,000 refugees to Canada. What does the sponsorship process look like? What happens once refugees come to Canada? How can you and I help? Ratna Omidvar, founding executive director of the Global Diversity Exchange at Ryerson University and chair of Lifeline Syria, is here to help us learn more. Welcome to the show, Ratna.
Thank you.
So can you share with us a little bit about the work that Lifeline Syria does and how it's different than other charitable organizations?
Well, Lifeline Syria is a new organization. We just were formally created a couple of months ago. It's hard to believe that. And we're not a charity.
Okay.
We're a not-for-profit organization. And really, we're a group of citizens who came together early this year. In January, we had our first meeting. And we reflected back on the history of this city and its residents in opening their hearts, minds, and homes to refugees, especially during the Indo-Chinese crisis of the 1980s. And we reflected on what citizens and residents were able to do. The government of Canada had said, we will give you permission to sponsor 5,000 Indo-Chinese refugees. And by the time it was finished, the city had brought 15,000.
Wow.
So, you know, that was an incredible outpouring of support from ordinary people in our city. And we asked ourselves, can we recreate this history? Can we reinvent it? I mean, times are very different. The world has become a different place. The refugees are coming from a completely different part of the world, this time Syria. Can we recreate it? And we unanimously agreed that yes, not only could we recreate it, but we must recreate it. And so Lifeline Syria is simply about bringing Syrian refugees and resettling them in the GTA over the next 2 years. That's our goal. Our goal is numerical. We want to bring 1,000. I'm pretty sure we will exceed that, but it is a goal that is within our grasp.
And is this within, this is probably separate than the 10,000 that the government wants to bring, right?
The 10,000 that the government wants to bring are Canada-wide.
Okay.
Are Canada-wide. And the government has said, first said it would bring them over 3 years. Now the Prime Minister has made a promise by the end of next year. So numbers here, numbers there. I
but
think
you
we
guys
want
are just
to see
getting
people,
together, exactly.
We want to see people hit the ground in Toronto.
Yeah. So walk us through the sponsorship process when it comes to bringing refugees, because I know generally this idea of sponsorship and bringing refugees is a very, it's a very foreign concept. And when you think, and even within my friends, when I've talked about it, we've all just been like, okay, yeah, we're going to donate to X organization, Y organization. Is that really the need in terms of, helping sponsor refugees?
It's a complex question. So let me start by explaining it as simply as I can understand it. There are really 3 players in the private sponsorship field. The individuals, which are groups of people, your friends, my street, my book club, who get together and say we want to do this. Then there's the Syrian refugees themselves. Let's talk about Syrian refugees because that's the context of the day. So the groups of people coming together and raising money to settle the family in the first year is a very unique Canadian innovation. No other country in the world allows private citizens and enables them to say, government, you do your stuff, we will add to it. And we will do this, and we will financially look after the refugees for a year. That's the commitment citizens make. So that's one part of it. So you have to get together, you've got to raise the money, you've got to educate yourself.
And the money that we're raising is to help the families once they come physically to Canada.
It is to pay for their housing, it is to pay for their food, for their transportation, for their, any ancillary expenses, to pay for their phones. You have to help them get the health card, you've got to make sure they open a bank account, you've got to help them file their papers for the social insurance number.
So basically starting a life from scratch.
They're starting a life from scratch and you are their proxy family. So people misunderstand this idea of private sponsorship when they say it's about money. It's not about money. or not just about
That's
money.
one little part, right?
It's about your time and commitment. And it's for a full year. You are really responsible for them. And I have spoken to lots of people who did this for the Indo-Chinese refugees, and they all tell me it is the most exhausting thing they have ever done, but it is also the single most rewarding thing they have ever done. So that's the sponsor part. Now, you've got to be matched. You've got to find a family. Let's talk about families, because they are mostly families, very few single individuals, although I'm sure they are there. You've got to find the family and match them and put the case forward. And this happens in two ways. First, the government of Canada works with the UNHCR, and I know that the UNHCR and the relationship with the government has been in the news, but typically, more usually, the UNHCR overseas qualifies refugees and says to the government of Canada, we've vetted these are high need, they only give really high need refugees, and these are normally people who've been traumatized, people with large families. This is what we're learning about Syria. They don't come in neat Canadian families of mother, father, son and daughter and dog. No, they come in large families. So the government of Canada looks at these files and says, we will bring over a number, and then they hand over the others, and these are called blended visa officer referrals, to private sponsors.
And then they can...
And we can pick and choose. So I'm sponsoring, I have got a group of people together. We're 10 wonderful people. We've got the money. And we looked at these files, and there was, there were a number of cases. There are very few. There were 3 cases we could pick from.
Wow.
And we quickly chose one case. It's a complicated case, but this is what we want to do, help people most in need. So that's one route, to wait for the government to give you the files. They keep telling us that they will be higher numbers that people can pick and choose from, but it is a delay.
And at any given time, how many files would they give you?
I'm not able to say. When my team looked at the files, there were 3 cases that were available.
Wow.
And they were all picked up very quickly. I have to tell you.
Which is an amazing thing.
Which is an amazing
Yeah.
thing, because these are not, mom, pop. These are completely different, complex cases. So then what do the other sponsors do? They then work up their own case files, and they do that because there are large numbers of Syrian Canadians in Toronto who have stepped up and said, there are, after all, 4 million Syrians who are in refugee-like situations, and they have families within these numbers, they have friends, they have neighbors, they have associates, and they have stepped forward and said, we have cases. So this is completely different. You build up the case from Canada.
Individually, by yourself.
With help from Lifeline Syria.
Yes,
we will
of
help
course.
you build up the case. But remember, you have to fill out a 52-page questionnaire before you submit it to the government for approval, or not even for approval, for consideration. And these are people who are, in Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey. They will have cell phones, but you have to ask them very granular questions like, what school did you go to? Which street was the school? What was the name of your... It's very granular information. It's 52 pages. So then you work up this file, and when it's complete, you're able to submit it to the government of Canada. Then they take a look at it, and then they send the file overseas to the Canadian visa officers overseas, who then have to do medical and security clearances.
Wow.
So you see, it does take time.
It is. It definitely sounds like a very complicated process. But from what you're saying, it seems like the community response has been very positive. So maybe we can focus a little bit. I think I've gotten a sense of community, but what about I know there's some partnerships that Lifeline Syria has established in terms of educational institutions. Can you share a bit of information on that?
This is the most fantastic outcome, I believe, to date for Lifeline Syria, is institutions. I mean, individuals are wonderful. I mean, I love that. But when an institution like Ryerson, and because I'm at Ryerson, I can speak about them. When we launched Lifeline Syria, the president of Ryerson, Sheldon Levy, and the vice president of research, Dr. Wendy Sukier, immediately said, this is something the university must embrace. Because if there is a university that is diverse and multicultural and made up of tomorrow's Canada, it is Ryerson. And they stepped forward in a very interesting way. They said, we will involve the university leadership. And we will involve the students. So there are 25 teams at Ryerson that are made up of leading members of the Ryerson community, including the president, the provost, the dean of business, the vice president of research. I'm one of those people as well, some of my other colleagues at Ryerson. We have created teams, and we are on an individual personal level, we are each of us sponsoring families. We're also matched by student volunteers from Ryerson, young people who are very keen on helping, and they come from the faculty of nursing, the faculty of business, the faculty of architecture and design. You know, it's a mixed bag of people. But what's interesting, and they're all saying, as students, we want to help. So it is a true university-wide response. What's more interesting is that Ryerson has thrown out this challenge to other universities in Toronto. And today U of T has joined, York has joined, OCAD has joined, Seneca College wants to join. So it's truly a sector-wide educational response.
So what are you know, it sounds like there is a lot of work going on, but obviously there's still a lot more that needs to be done. So what are you seeking from, you know, the average Canadian, our viewers today?
I want more sponsors to sign on. And I know that there is a huge outpouring of support. And I know that money is a factor, but I've always felt, and I think I am right in my intuition, that money is the easy part. We actually need teams of people to come together, to attend our information sessions, to understand what this is, and to form groups of people amongst themselves. I'm very keen on unusual players. I think religious institutions have always been the foundation and will always be the foundation of the private sponsorship program. But I want to bring private sponsorship to the unusual ways people are gathering in the city. So, as I said, book clubs, walking clubs, your street, your business improvement association, your group of people in your tech department, school communities, you know, local schools, are all, you know, coming together, and I'd like to see more of that. I also want members of the Syrian community to step up and say, we have cases, and to work with us, and it is very painful. I know it is very painful, and it's very long, but to step up and work these cases out with us so that we can do the yin and the yang. It is truly two parts of the process that have to work together.
And if people want to learn more information, they can visit the website?
They can visit the website, they can attend an information session, and they can understand the process, and they can understand the frustrations. It is also really important for citizens, regardless of whether they are sponsors or not, to continue to urge all parties, all our government in Ottawa, to expedite the process and to facilitate it, because people's lives are in danger.
Thank you so much, Ratna. I know I personally learned a lot about sponsorship and Syrian refugees that I didn't know, and I hope our viewers take away from that as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.